Hey, what's up, guys? Dean Hansen here. Today I want to talk about my DIY solar panel system. Been looking into solar for a while. Eventually I'll probably put in a full system on the roof, but that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. A lot of people will come by trying to sell you a solar panel system, door-to-door salesman. You usually get a quote. It's usually $20,000, if not $30,000. And yeah, it might erase your electrical bill, but that's still going to take like 20 to 30 years to break even on that investment. So it's not like really this solid investment in my mind. I think that once you hit your break even, your roof's going to need to be redone. You're probably going to redo your solar with whatever the latest technology is of the time. That said, you are breaking even and you're using way less, producing way less pollution, so I think it's the right thing to do, but I don't think it's necessarily something to do only to save money. Either way, that's a really large investment, a really large cost, and I kind of wanted to just play around with the solar panel system as just like a DIY project, learn how it works. I plan on maybe building a shed and having it completely off-grid, powered by a solar panel system and a battery system. So I just kind of wanted to get my feet wet, learn how solar panels are set up, how to maintain them, and I wanted to go as simple as possible. I think it's kind of interesting. I think people don't realize how simple it is to actually get started in solar, how simple it is to set up a panel and actually start, saving a little bit of money on your electric bill. Not a whole lot. I've seen videos similar to the one I'm making now where people say they're going to save 10, 20, 30 bucks a month on their electric bill. I'm running the numbers right now. I'm only a week into it, and maybe I'll have to do an update on this video here in a few months, but it's only looking like I'm going to save about $5 a month on my utility bill, which is not large by any means, but it is kind of cool. It's a DIY project. It's going to cost a couple $100, and you're actually going to start earning that back. Most DIY projects don't earn anything back, so I think it's kind of a cool project to learn. It's cool to just harness energy from the sun, and it's fun to put together. So I went back and forth a lot on my build of what I wanted to do, how much I wanted to spend, and I really wanted to spend less than $300. I wanted something that could pay itself off maybe in 5 years or something, as opposed to 20 years. Something I could easily track how much power I'm gaining from it, easily set up with very little drilling into the house. I didn't really want to climb up on the roof or drill holes in the roof. So this is kind of unique, but I actually ended up going with a fence-mounted system that I put together here. I wanted it to be something I had access to, that I could move around if I decide to hook it up somewhere else, or if I want to put it somewhere, put it on a shed or something, or maybe put it in some kind of RV build or something like that. So I didn't want to mount it to the roof. I also wanted to be able to clean it off. I also wanted it to be adjustable, because the angle of your solar panel makes a huge difference on how much energy you gather from it. I wanted it simple, and I wanted it cheap, and I definitely wanted more than 200 watts. So if you look on Amazon, you can see you can get a 200 watts for about $200 roughly. So I decided I had to go local, and I was able to find myself a 325 watt panel for a really cheap price from a guy who just has a bunch of them, and it's new. And so he sold me that for $180, 325 watts, and then he got me a grid tie inverter for $50. The cheapest I found this exact same inverter online was $120 something on Amazon, so he gave me a really good deal. So I made it $230 for the panel and the inverter, and really that's all you need to start getting power from your system. You're just gonna have to attach 2 wires to the inverter, one positive, one negative, and clearly labeled, and you're ready to go. These grid tie inverters, however, do not work unless it detects the grid. So if you lose power, this is no longer going to generate power. I think that's mostly for backfeeding issues. If the utility company is working on the line and they shut it down, they don't want you backfeeding into their dead line. It's also probably a safety feature just of the product, because the cable that comes out looks a lot more like a power cable you'd plug into the wall to power a device. You wouldn't really expect it to have 120 volts AC on the end of the plug, which is exactly what it does. So how does it actually get to your panel? It's really simple. You don't have to open up your panel, your utility panel, and wire anything in. You just plug the AC output of the inverter right into any outlet in your house, and that's going to give it a path back to the panel. As long as you're not pushing in too much current to trip the breaker of your panel, you should be okay. One thing to note, if you only do this on one leg of your 240 panel, it's only going to be tying power into that leg. Let's say I have the solar panel tied into one leg, but my TV is running off of the other leg. I'm not going to be powering my TV with solar. So let's get into the basics of the setup I decided to do. I did a fence mount, which is really rare. I haven't seen anybody else do this really. And it's mounted to a chain link fence. It's kind of weird, but it's super simple. It gives me everything I wanted. All the things I mentioned earlier about what I wanted out of the project. It gives me all of that. If you look at this, you can see that I've mounted directly to the fence. I've got these angle iron brackets, from Home Depot, cut them to size, and was able to just pretty much mount them directly to the fence with a U-bolt locking system. Really, really cheap, really simple. It seems to be plenty strong to hold up the weight of the panel. And I really like that I can adjust these arms really easily with one bolt up and down and change the angle through the seasons. I could go out there every month and get the ideal angle if I wanted. So it's really simple. It's up off the ground. I didn't have to build anything really to mount it on. I didn't have to drill anything in my roof. It's really easy to clean. It just came out really quite simple. It might be a little goofy, but you get that with DIY. So I ran the cable down this 1/2-inch PVC conduit, really, really cheap stuff. I think I got a little bit of work left to do here. I need to ground the solar panel. I might drive a new ground rod, or I'll run a ground rod over near the house. There's a existing ground rod in the ground for my AC system. You can see I ran the conduit kind of up the wall. I'll show you in a minute why it has to run so high up the wall. It's not the straightest, perfect thing. I didn't spend a ton of time on it. I definitely could have added some PVC and made this a little bit straighter up and down, or more of a plumb run up the wall, but I just wasn't super concerned with it. I don't feel like this is a super permanent situation. So you have the two cables coming right off the solar panel, down the conduit, right into the kitchen. And then they pull out right above the cabinets here in the kitchen. Two cables coming in. You can see that just kind of wires right into the inverter. And then on the other side of the inverter, you got an AC output, and that literally just runs straight into the wall. So pretty much plug and play, right? You take the only two cables off of the solar panel, you run them into an inverter. You got to change that DC to AC, and then you plug that AC right into the wall and you're good to go. I really wanted to know how much energy I was gathering from the sun, how many kilowatts I was, removing from my utility bill, essentially. So I was able to find for about $16 on Amazon this smart plug from Top Greener, and with energy monitoring capabilities for about under $20. And it's a pretty straightforward smart plug. It's Wi-Fi enabled. Just make sure you get one that has energy monitoring, and this will show me the energy I used for the last 100 days. So it's very useful information. So I just put this I just plug this into the outlet that I'm going to plug into, and open up the app, and now I have a real-time monitoring of how many watts and amps and voltage I'm adding into my electrical system of my house. So I really, really like that. I think that's one of the coolest features of the whole system. The cheapest part of it was just being able to monitor how much energy I'm using. I've been getting about a kilowatt hour a day on average. I've only had this up about a week, and it is August, so days are still pretty long. I think I can count on probably getting around, I don't know, a kilowatt hour a day on average. So now that we have the system all set up, I kind of want to go into the way I'm going to track what I gather. I built a spreadsheet, kind of got some interesting statistics to show there. So let's head over to the computer and take a look. All right, guys, here we are on my computer. Before I jump into the spreadsheet I created, I want to address this image right here. The proper way, and the way I'm going to eventually have this after I'm grounded properly, is I'm going to have these cables running into a box, some kind of plastic box that's mounted to the fence. Right now I've got, some extra tape around the insulation of the cable and some tape around the fence. And that's just to alleviate any concern that if the weather were going crazy and that cable were to wear through to the bare wire and it was touching the fence, we're going to have a hot fence. We're going to be pumping 50 volts DC into that whole fence. That's bad. So I'm sure that this is not like up to any type of code. One other thing I wanted to mention is this fan right here. Very, very kind of loud. So this was in my kitchen, right? You can definitely hear this fan, and it kicks on quite often whenever you're generating power. So just be aware that wherever you put this, and I don't want to enclose it in some small area. I don't want it to overheat. Just wherever you put this, you're going to hear it running, and it's kind of an annoying pitch. So just something to be aware of that I forgot to mention in the original video. Anyway, let's jump right into the spreadsheet I'm created to track my energy generation. Earlier in the video, I kept saying I was using the app to track my energy usage. It's really to track how much energy we're gaining from the panel, not really our usage. I'm kind of laying it all out here. This is pretty personal information, but I figure I don't really care. I went and grabbed my last year worth of utility bills from the power company and put in each month, how much kilowatt hours I used, how much it cost, got a calculated average of how many kilowatt hours we used for the whole month, another calculated cell that's showing about the cost that we're paying per day. And then here we're going to put in how much power we generated, kilowatts we generated that month from solar. Now you can see that all these are zero because we didn't start till August 2020. As of right now, I think we installed it on the 20th. So we're about 8 days in, 7-8 days worth of collecting power from that single panel. And we've gathered 10.63 kilowatt hours. And I'm just taking this number directly from the Top Greener app. So we go over one more. This is an average generated per day. So it's really this number divided by 30. So it's an average. I'm saying there's 30 days in a month, even though that's not always true. So it's only saying I'm gathering, 0.35 per day, which is not necessarily true because you'll need a full month of data for that cell to make any sense. The amount saved is an actual dollar figure. I'm getting this number, and it should be really, really quite accurate, from the amount that they're charging me that month on average. We used 1,700 kilowatts, which is crazy. Our AC is pretty much running non-stop. We have big vaulted ceilings and horrible windows. It cost us $244, which was an average of 14 cents per kilowatt for this month. An average of almost 60 kilowatt hours per day, which is crazy. Cost per day around $8. And then we put in so far what we've earned, what we've gathered from the sun. So since we put in this system, a week ago or so, we've generated enough power to save $1.48 on our utility bill, which is not significant, but we're not expecting significant returns on a $200 system. It's just not realistic, but it's kind of fun to collect the information just to see how useful it is. So over here I have some more information that'll be updated every time I enter in this information. The total cost of the system for me was $266. So that was $230 for the panel, the inverter. I bought some extra cable to get the length into the house, and the top greener smart plug came out to $266 is my total investment into this project so far. The adjusted cost is literally $266 minus this number here, however much we gather. As we gather energy from the sun every day, this adjusted cost will eventually go all the way down to zero, but it will take several years. I also did a return on investment, which is probably not the best thing to do because that's always going to look horrible until you break even. One thing that's kind of cool about solar is you're always going to generate power unless the system breaks down. You know, I'm used to playing like poker and stuff where you got a lot of up and down, kind of like the stock market or investing. You want it to be up, you want to be going up, but there's a lot of this to get there. The thing with solar is it's never going to go backwards, right? It's always just gonna, every day you're just gonna get a little bit more, guaranteed, unless the system fails. So then I started thinking about, okay, how much energy is this? What does this really mean? A kilowatt hour a day on average. I got 1.5 kilowatt hours today, but in the winter I'll probably get much less. What does that really mean? So I started plugging in some things that relate to me to kind of see how much energy I've gathered. You can really look at it as like glass half full or half empty. If you look at it in one way, it seems like a ton of power, but if you look at it in another way, it doesn't seem like much power at all. So these are equations that are always going to be changing as I enter in the data. But here you could see that I could have charged my laptop from completely dead to 100% full 186 times with the amount of energy I've gathered. So with the amount of energy here, the total energy we've gathered from the sun, we could have charged my laptop, my Dell laptop, 186 times full charge. So that makes it feel like, wow, like this has only been in like a week. That's a ton of power. I could have charged my phone from completely dead to all the way full 780 times. I gather enough power each day to charge my phone like 80 to 90 times from dead to full. So when you think of it that way, it's like, holy cow, like this simple little $200 project is actually producing quite a bit of power. But then here's where it starts looking like it's not really making any effect at all. When we come over to my car, I have a Tesla Model 3 with a 50 kilowatt hour battery bank. And with the power I've gathered today, I could have only charged my car a 20% charge. I haven't even been able to get to one charge on my car yet, and I won't until I get 50 kilowatts. But you can see that we would have been able to charge my car with the energy I've gathered 20%. I also have this full day use. This is a little bit more complicated equation based on our average daily use. Basically it's saying the energy we've gathered so far is pretty much worth 28% of our daily use. So I'm guessing this will be somewhere in the one probably 10 a year or something, 10 to 15 full days worth of power use per year, if that makes sense. It doesn't, but hopefully that makes sense to somebody. And then this other one I threw in here was, we have this big 75-inch 4K Samsung TV, and I put in there that with the energy we've gathered, we could have watched 53 hours of TV. So it's kind of fun to see what the energy really means. I'm thinking that I probably get roughly an average of 30 kilowatt hours a month. I don't know yet with the small sample size we have. But if you were to take, let's say that we installed this last July and we got 30, and if we just took this and said we got 30 hours a month all the way up to August, you know, you could see that we would have saved about $50. So I think $50 a year is probably a pretty realistic number, but I honestly don't know what that number is going to be. All right, so I'm going to conclude this video finally. I know it's been a long one. Hopefully it was interesting to some people. Be careful if you do this DIY project. Make sure you do your research, get the right cable size. You know, never let the wires coming off of the solar panel touch each other. It's treat it like a battery, you know, stuff like that. You know, use common sense. You know, I'm not an electrician, so obviously you can probably tell. So, you know, just do this at your own risk, and be careful, because you are, you know, 24 volts or 40 volts, that might not sound like a ton, but in AC world, in the DC world, it can really do get you quite a zap. And if you look at the video, when you go back to when I was looking through my phone, you could see that it was pulling about 2 amps. We were getting about 2 amps into the house, and that's enough to kill you. So just be careful. Obviously, don't do anything that you don't fully understand. You know, just make sure that you're safe. All right, thanks guys. Have a good one.